All right, let's get to the hype that this chapter brought to us. Now, in the previous chapter, we know we had stuff like, we had Dante getting that death thrust right to the chest, and all around just seemingly being a bad spot. Now, I feel like anyone really paying enough attention would know, clearly Dante's not going to die. We already saw that he has some form of magic that healed him, and my whole speculation that Tabata was using his previous main character, at least to a degree, from Hungry Joker, as well as the antagonist to him, who, if you've read Hungry Joker, the main character used gravity manipulation, and then the guy who was like his primary antagonist used a radiation ability that let him mutate his body as well as other people. So essentially, gravity and body manipulation, which, as we've seen, looks to be Dante, which I think is actually really cool. I really, really like when you have an author who has things that, you either if it's something that's canceled or a power or like aspect that is underutilized, something that it's like, well, this was really badass, why didn't I, use more of this? That they are managed to take something and then put it out to its fullest. And I know that's one of the things that I've always liked about like Hiro Mishima, and I like that Tabata's doing it as well. Like, I mean, like, look at, like, you have someone like Crash Cookie and Rave Master, complete fodder, pretty cool power, and then it's like, you reutilize that ability into Guild Arts. It would have been a complete shame if Tabata didn't do something similar with little gravity manipulation and flesh manipulation, two really cool powers now on Dante. And I think that the fact that he has both of those, and the fact that he's got, like, a presence of Tabata's previous main character and that same rival, that it makes so much more sense of Dante being at the head of the Dark Triad. I know some people seem to still kind of like want to root for like Vonica being the head Dark Triad or Xenon really being the head Dark Triad. I don't think so. I think not only him being clearly the leader, him being the one that's set up against the main character, as well as traits of him seem to come from the previous main character that Tabata made from Hungry Joker and the main character's primary antagonist. It just seems so much more clear that Tabata put a lot more like personal and story-wise emphasis on Dante's existence. It doesn't mean that Vonica and Xenon aren't going to be very powerful, very, tied to the story. Clearly they are. But Dante, I think Dante is he's just going to have a much bigger spot. I mean, I feel like that's obvious. And the only reason some people, I think, would think otherwise is the fact maybe they like Dante, or maybe they like Xenon or Vonica more than Dante. Out of them right now, before I even get to the chapters, I would say overall, I like Dante the most, but Xenon, I think, has the coolest design, at least in my personal opinion. I think design-wise, his is the coolest. Just because, I mean, bone powers, I love the cool one bone wing and horn, and then one devil wing and horn. I think that's just badass. But anyway, getting to the chapter itself, let's just get to discussing, how all this went down. Like, this was a pretty vicious fight already. And Dante literally getting, like, his torso just blown off and now getting into this spot. Pretty intense. I was really hyped to see, like, where this was going to go. I figured, yeah, he was going to heal. I didn't expect him to, like, pretty much go into, like, a giant buff monster-like form. I thought he would kind of, like, maybe get, like, an arm enhanced or something. I was thinking kind of maybe, like, kind of like when Kisuke Urahara was fighting and, use his Bankai to reconstruct his arm and it was way more powerful, where it would have an effect, but it wouldn't just be as monstrous as this. But I do like just having this badass, giant, enhanced form. And we knew that he was going to have something kind of weird about it because he said he didn't like to use his, it's not titled flesh magic, it's body magic, so it looks like it's going to be just on him. And I still think that's pretty cool. I'm wondering what degree he's going to be able to do it, because if you've ever read Hungry Joker, and I know either if you haven't read Hungry Joker, then I'll give you a quick explanation, or, you have, about the character in question could, like, manipulate his body to, like, give himself wings and claws, and just use, he can use radiation in general, but, like, the primary overall thing was, mutating his body, doing stuff to his body and other people in order to, like, fit whatever combat situation he's in. So, I'm wondering what else Dante's going to be able to do with this. I'm actually really hyped. And on top of that, like, when he fixes his body, first off, I really like the conversation he has in his head where he's kind of like has that cocky villain kind of persona. It's like, impossible, he could never defeat me, no human should be able to defeat me. And he's like, no, there's one and he's right in front of me, like in this humiliating state. And he likes it. He likes experiencing these emotions that other villains probably would just be pissed off about. And I can understand that. But I like that about Dante, is Dante's whole kind of setup is about like experiencing emotions that make him feel human, because we know that from his backstory is he seemed to kind of like be almost emotionally dead. So having parts like this where there's emotions like going through him and he's just experiencing these things, probably like, I don't want to say the first time, but like very, very rarely, it hypes him up, which makes me wonder, like, when he's actually defeated in the future, I feel like he's gonna like it. I feel like he's gonna be happy about it. And I think that'll make his character even more interesting in the long run. And I out of their personalities, I think Dante for sure is the one I'm most intrigued with. So from that, he's very happy to Yami, the fact that he was able to get him to feel these emotions, to get him in this mental state. And then his body starts to regenerate, starts to reconnect itself and fix it and just kind of get all back together. And that's when he comes out in this giant muscular state. He's got the claws out. I like that a lot. I really liked seeing them sharp claws, because he just had the black hands beforehand, but now he's got like the big pointy ass claws, which again, badass. But now he's ready to go further against Yami. And the thing that I really like after this point of like just thinking in general is now in this form, just think about this, with his power, he's gonna have highly enhanced physical strength. And that's one of the things that Asta has a huge benefit on, is because of the way that like Mana Zone works in the Black Clover. When you're putting a layer of mana over your body to increase like your durability, your resistances and whatnot. So when Asta uses something like the Demon Slaying Sword, like when it hits, it's pretty much just gonna bypass that mana skin, and you're just gonna be, it's gonna really result, instead of just like, I'm gonna hit you with a really powerful attack, it's a kid with pretty much super strength with a very heavy sword smashing it into your body, and you know, it's gonna be breaking bones, doing a lot of damage. So Asta's physical strength has always been something that has really been emphasized, obviously. And we know from the fight with Vito that, a physically stronger opponent is one of Asta's weaknesses. Somebody that's able just to outmuscle him. Because Asta's physical strength in a world where most characters aren't very physically strong is a big thing. And so now Dante's going to have that. And it was cool on Vito, but really that was it for the most part, except for maybe Marileona. Because I think the only character, I had to go back and look. I remember there was a point where Tabata ranked characters in physical strength. I know Vito was ranked, I think, number 3, and I'm trying to remember. I think Asta was 2 and Yami was 1. I'm pretty sure Yami was number 1 at the time. Oh, this was a while ago. But Dante definitely, I think, is going to be physically stronger than him, at least at this point in time. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing, the just panels depicting that. Like Asta going in for an attack and Dante catching the sword. Because Dante has the physical strength level to be able to do that. And I think that is one of the more exciting things that we're going to be able to see. And it's not just like you could maybe have a part where it's like, oh, well, maybe maybe the anti-magic will mess with the spell. Maybe. I think he would have to use the Demon Destroyer Sword, because I imagine it's kind of like an after effect buff. Like he would have to destroy the effect that made him very strong instead of just the body itself, I would guess. But as it were, I really like this gigantic form. I think it looks really cool. I think the wings need to be bigger, because the tail looks really good on it. The horns, his head looks really small, but I think that's fine. I think definitely the wings should get a little bit bigger. But badass in general. I really like seeing Dante like this. Dude is just running like an absolute beast. And Yami goes for another death thrust. He puts a big hole in his body, but he's just going to heal from that. And you have this part where Dante is just discussing of like how, in terms of technique and battle ability, that Yami surpasses him, but clearly not in ability in general, like overall ability, because Dante can heal from it. And I know I've seen some people come like, oh, well, it's just because, he's only, like, Yami's stronger, blah, blah, blah. It's just this power that makes Dante better. I mean, but that's his power. Like, that's something that is part of him. It's his magic. And this one especially, because the argument for, oh, well, the devil powers, that, it's something that they, was they kind of obtain. It's not something they're born with. I mean, that's not the best argument considering, stuff like Yami needs to have a sword to use some of his attacks. He's got to obtain that. Asta, obviously, with his grimoire, with the spirit. It's definitely not the same. Like, a character obtaining something, it just means that they've obtained it. The way that I think would be that argument that some people would be trying to use is in terms of, like, loaned power or a temporary buff. Whereas if you had, like, Vonica or somebody come in, use some blood ability, and make Dante stronger, and that's how he'd be, like, in this position. But I don't think that Dante just, with his devil power and his magic, is the same thing. Like, obvious comparison, I'm a huge Fairy Tail fan. I think anybody who's been to my channel knows that. Natsu with his Ethereus Dragon Force is absurdly more powerful than him as he is normally. But I don't, when I discuss him, like, in the idea of, like, him fighting another character, I wouldn't bring up his, I wouldn't bring that form up unless it was specifically that one, because it's not something he can do on his own. I generally wouldn't use or loop in something that isn't something that they can't do by themselves. But if you had a character like, you have a character like Gray, who got his Devil Sling abilities from his father, it's permanently part of his skill set, and it's something he can do at any point. So it's something he obtained, but it's something that is now part of him. Dante, as well as any of the characters who have devil powers, unless they, you separate the power from them, they're going to be, this is part of their skill set. It's just fair. And him regenerating, yeah, that's part of his skill set. That just makes sense. It'd be kind of silly to, like, not like, oh, well, regeneration doesn't count. It's like, well, if it's part of, like, their moveset, Dante's probably way more reckless from the fact that he can regenerate, and he knows he can. So it doesn't make any sense to me for that argument of, like, oh, well, his, he's got these, he's got regeneration, so it shouldn't count for whatever. Also, the horns on his forehead look to be getting bigger, too. They look like they're growing progressively throughout this fight. But after that point, Dante is just completely, like, overwhelming him, talking about, like, how much he likes that even people who, like, all their hard work and all the capabilities they have, that because of what Dante has, that he will come out on top, crush them. He's unaging, he doesn't die, he doesn't really get weaker. I like that a lot. I really like this idea for him of, like, taking somebody's, like, like, their skill and things that they've kind of worked towards, and because of what Dante's obtained, he's just happy to watch it kind of get destroyed in front of them. To see that emotion go through against his opponents. And definitely the thing I really like about Dante right now is just his whole concept about human emotions, I think, is really interesting. But after that point, Yami is just, like, realizes he's like, he can't do it alone. This guy's too powerful. He's got too many, like, he's got too much to his skill set, which is funny because I realized yesterday, I think Yami has the biggest moveset in Black Clover. I couldn't think of a single character that has more named techniques than Yami. And the only characters I feel like are going to be kind of, like, pressing up that are people with dual types, people like any of the Dark Triad or Mars. I have to go back and look, but I feel like Yami has the most. But anyway, after that point, he's like, well, I can't beat this guy. He's too powerful. I'm not going to be able to do this alone. And this scene legitimately got me emotional. I got a little shaken up. I got a tiny bit misty-eyed, I got to admit, of when he's like, I can't win this one without you, Asta. And it's the recognition that really, really gets me. It wasn't just like, oh, cool, badass, they're going to have a dual fight scene. It's when you have parts like that where you have a character, like, we remember back when Yami and Asta first met and everything that's happened before, and then you have the flashback scene, like, in Asta's head, and I'm really looking forward to, like, how this goes down in the anime. But Yami just acknowledging Asta's use and his, not even his use, his capability, and as a member of the Black Bulls, and knowing what, he's not going to be able to do this without the aid of one of his members, and I really like that. I really like that a lot. And then you get this beautiful, like, part where Asta gets back up, and I love seeing that part motivate Asta to get back to his feet. And then you have this side-by-side fight that I don't care if they, if they lose next chapter. I love seeing stuff like this where they're now, beside each other, getting ready to go about this. And both of them are running on fumes. That's one of the things that I think is important to know. Like, this isn't like Asta getting up and, like, he's in his berserk form and he's got complete control of it now because of what Yami said. Asta's got barely a wing, and he's got a horn, but the horn is like the devil magic that's on him at the time isn't it isn't even covering his face. Like it's not even giving him a fang, it looks like. And then you look at the Demon Slayer sword. It's got the anti-magic on it, but it just looks like it's in shambles. It's not in a very powerful state. It's just these two now running on the last remaining amounts they have. I'm curious to know that, because I don't think Dante can lose this unless like a bunch of captains show up and Dante's in a spot where he will lose just from sheer numbers. There's just an overwhelming amount of people show up. Like you had Fuegoleon, Nozel, Marileona, all these guys just pop up. Sure, but other than that, I don't really see how Dante could lose. And I only say lose with all these people showing up because I think he'd be smart enough to leave at that point. Just because I think he would know if he's outnumbered and in a bad spot. But I don't see Dante dying. I don't see Dante really losing. Like I've discussed it before, the only way I could see Dante in any fathomable way dying is if it was being set up for the other two members of the Dark Triad, for Vonica and Xenon, to some reason want to take Asta and make him a member, which I think would be kind of weird. It'd be a really interesting twist, but I would prefer Dante stick around because I do really like Dante. I think he's a really interesting character. But anyway, I'm so hyped. I'm also a little jealous because like I realized that what I was thinking, I was like, man, this is badass. I love this. I was just thinking of the idea of like the guy standing up with, like the main character standing up with his teach. I don't want to say, because he's kind of like a teacher, but pseudo father figure. I like very to like Natsu has one with Igneel to a degree, but he doesn't have one with Guildarts, and I'm wishing, like, man, I'm really hoping eventually I can get one kind of like this with Natsu and Guildarts. But to see Asta and Yami like this is great. I love this a lot. I'm really, really, really hyped for this next chapter, regardless if they win or lose, because I just want to see them fight together. I really want to see them fight together, and I'm really hoping that maybe not this fight, but in the fight now that eventually when they do defeat Dante, I think we'll have way later, is we get stuff like Yami, kind of like, remember when Lumiere and Licht fought against Zagrid, and like you had like Lumiere throwing light attacks at them, Zagrid dodging, and then here's Licht from the the back area using the Demon Dweller sword, absorbing those attacks and redirecting them. I want to see that from Asta and Yami, where Asta absorbs dimension slashes and throws them back. I think that'd be super badass, and it's just like dimension slash, and it's constantly from different directions showing up, and maybe like you get something where they're just constantly hitting Dante and they dice him up. That would be super badass. Make him just kind of look just like shredded ham or something. That'd be, oh my god, this thing about that would be super hype. But I am really looking forward to this next chapter. But regardless of if it literally, the chapter could start, they get a couple moves in, Dante beats them, and then takes Yami and leaves. That can happen. I'd be more than satisfied, because I just want to see these two fight side by side for even a couple pages, and I'll be perfectly happy. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this. Like, what are your opinions when it comes to this? Because I know some people are probably like, Asta's up again. I mean, Asta really didn't, it's him getting up, it's like beforehand he got it because of the Berserk form, but now it's clearly a much more deeply rooted character inspiration and character driven thing that I think is really, really, really good, and I think it speaks a lot about the series, and I love it. I'm very excited to see where this goes. I feel like anybody listening can tell that I'm excited. I really like very emotional character driven things like this. I think this is fantastic, and you can tell like when it gets to the anime, it's gonna be like really soft, kind of like emotional music, and then hype when Asta grabs that sword and gets up and stands next to Yami and gets ready to go at Dante. So other than that though, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this this chapter, and tell me what you want to see come up, and what you're most excited for in this next one. But other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, press the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.